Hey guys, it's Paul. I just wanted to go over some of the images that I made from the Tesoro High School football game last Friday night, where I shot the game under the lights with the 400-2.8 GMaster lens and the Sony A9. So I shot quite a few images. When you're shooting at 20 frames a second, it's not hard to make a lot of images. I wasn't just shooting with the 400-2.8, I was documenting it as well with the A7R3 and 24-70. And so there's a combination of these in my edited take of 538 images here. So what I thought I'd do is show you I would go through and scroll through the take, and you'll see on the right that there is this listing of the camera, the focal length, and all that good stuff. This is Photo Mechanic. It's by CameraBits, camerabits.com. There's a 14-day free trial. It is the best editor that I've ever found, and it's been around for about 20 years. News photographers have used it since the 90s when it first came out, and it still is the fastest thing that I've ever found to cull through my images. And one thing that makes it so great is that it doesn't have to render the JPEGs. It just works from the, it doesn't have to render the RAW. It works from the embedded JPEGs. So this is the documentation inside the locker room. I also shot some video as well. All available light. This is the beginning of the images made with the 402.8, and it's interspersed with the 24-70 stuff, so you'll have to bear with me on that. But this is all at maximum aperture, which is the reason you buy this lens. And that's a fluorescent preset. So it's a preset that I shot the JPEGs with, and it actually did quite well. This is Cindy. She is one of the moms, and she's also a photographer who uses Canon. She uses the original Canon 400-2.8, and when she saw that, the reaction was great. The nice thing about this lens is it gives you reach, and it gives you a look that you just can't get with even a 70-200. As you notice, the bokeh out of focus elements in the background look really cool with this lens. That's one of the hallmarks of the GMaster lens, is the way that it renders out of focus highlights. That light is actually given to us courtesy of the tuba section. Here I'm doing my homage to Robert Clark's great Friday Night Lights portrait, or cover. And then being ahead of the team as they came out of the tunnel. This is just a section of the edit. It's all tracking. Then I moved the focus over to this young man, number 15. Stayed on him. Went wide. Okay, opening kickoff. I shot quite a sequence because I know the kicker's mother, and I wanted her to have a complete sequence of it. So I'm just going to go through it just to show what 20 frames a second looks like of the kick. Now, unfortunately, this player ran back the opening kick, so it just was the start of a very long night, unfortunately, for Tesoro. Now, this is included in there just to show you how quickly it acquires a very close set of action, and it finds focus on the player number 2, even though it's kind of after the ball went through the scene, but it just gets to where it needs to go quickly. Having 20 frames a second almost is like shooting a movie which would be at 24 frames a second. So it's I think it could be helpful actually to showcase technique. Now this is 10,000 ISO. 10,000 ISO under the lights. You're seeing 1/800th at 2.8. I like to go as high as I can, and making a kind of a compromise with ISO. I could have gone higher, 12,800, even 16 would have been fine, but This is I think a really nice number. 12,008 would get that 1,000 that 2.8. I like to get it. 500 2.8 is my minimum, but 1,800 would be fine. The nice thing about that 400 is the ability to get right in, and shooting from a low angle. I'm shooting on my knees typically. It gives me a look up into the eyes. So this is the pass, and then this is the catch off to the side, and it followed that to that quite nicely, and then it followed the run. And the stop-start motion of a player running off to the right side or coming to camera angle at maybe an oblique angle can be tricky for autofocus. You can really test how good a predictive autofocus is by how well it handles that, I think. And this is a nice sequence. You'll see the ball. It was an incomplete pass, but there was a kind of a sense that there might have been a fumble or might have been a free ball, but it wasn't. But I was able to then pick up this player who ran off with it, and had he gotten an interception, it would have been a really nice little run, but instead it was just called back. Coaches had a long night, unfortunately. Mission Viejo is one of the stronger teams in the division, or in the conference. Being able to pull in, this is close to midfield, downfield, and be able to pull in clean, tight, sharp action is really one of the hallmarks of that. And then what's so nice is they're both airborne, and you've got more options for photos. This is, I think, the best one, but that's pretty cool too. You've got the ability to get more, basically more chances. This is an incomplete pass, and unfortunately the ball's buried in a little bit of the shadow, but it did handle this rather tough light situation and found it quickly and was able to allow me to shoot 3 photos from that sequence. Well, actually more, but those were the 3 that I tested. Again, the punter getting ready to do his work across the field. That's almost a given now with a longer lens. It's nice to have that reach and not having to focus quite, or I should say enlarge quite so much, so it's really handy having that extra 400 2.8. Another thing that I do is I turn the C4 button or the trash can button into a hotkey that allows me to zoom into the APS-C crop. So it gives me close to a 600 millimeter f2.8 equivalent. It's a little smaller file. It goes from 24 megs down to 10, but I still find it handy. Gives me that large maximum aperture and gives me a little bit of reach so that when I see it in the eyepiece or on the actual image, I can see what I wanted it and intended it to be. Again, that low angle, looking up, shot with a 400 2.8 gives instant connection with the eyes and makes the background go out of focus. Here's again where illustrating 20 frames a second and how helpful that is. On this play, this catch, there were 3 chances at it, even at 20 frames a second. I'll take any extra help I can get. The little off moments of the line waiting for the play to come back. And I think it works really well as a black and white. There's the color too. This turned out to be a pretty nice little sequence, and it's from a relatively small portion of the frame. It's cropped to the right, or shot to the right of the frame, so it's just a nice little stop play. It's definitely not indicative of what happened with the game, but it still is really nice, clean action. And here's some more. This sequence was really helpful to illustrate, one, the reach of the 400-2.8, and also what's so cool about having 20 frames a second. It gives you so many more options on a play that we might have only had like 6 options before. And so therefore you get to really showcase what's happening from the start of the play through the end of it. So there's the battle ensues. And you can see the face mask that happens. The Mission Viejo player in the center was called for it, but it really just keeps developing in a really nice way, and they really battled. And notice it's staying on him, number 6, and it's still sharp at 2.8. And then all of a sudden, the Tesoro player takes with the arm bar, so we got a little WWE action going on. What's nice is there's options. There's like 3 options for a photo. I think that's probably the stronger one, but it's nice to have as many options as possible. They smothered him on this play. Unfortunately, they didn't do that a lot. But that was a great tackle. Okay, so here's the running back coming around left end, and it's a kind of a stutter move, and it's at an angle that's, it could be, who knows what angle it is, but it's just one of those things that showcases how incredibly accurate this 400-2.8 is with the A9 doing predictive autofocus at 20 frames a second. And it just follows him and stays on him, and it's tack sharp. I mean, there's so many options in that. Again, that reach just gives you so much flexibility because you can blow out the background, concentrate on the players, concentrate on the action, and utilize the light that's there. They're closer to the center of the field where it's actually about a 1/3 stop hotter, which is kind of nice. But the colors are really vibrant, really natural. This is only processed out of Lightroom too, so it's not anything really heavy duty on the post-production. Turned out to be a nice little sequence. And there's another part of it too. I'm just finding that I'm able to shoot much more compelling photographs of a play with many more options than I ever did before. And this was, again, out of the corner of the frame, so a very small portion of it. This was a touchdown catch. So I got the ball going in, actually in just about in the grasp, and there it is. And then the tackle, the trying to tackle, I should say, and the escape. Being able to turn the lens because it's so light as you're moving from quarterback to upfield makes all the difference in terms of what you're able to capture. I remember when I first shot with a 400-2.8 back in the 90s, and it was one of the earlier ones, and it was very, very heavy, probably a 1/3 heavier than this one is. And it took me a long time to get used to that whole movement, because when you would leave, when you were used to a 300-2.8, something that was a bit lighter, and then you'd move up to a 400, not only did you have the reach to contend with, but then you also had to deal with the weight of the lens and then moving it and getting comfortable with anticipating where the ball was going to go. having this lighter combination, both the camera and the lens and a monopod that's carbon fiber, just makes it so much easier. This is again another illustration of how well the A9 and the 400-2.8 do with that predictive autofocus, tracking the quarterback as he's getting out of the pocket and coming at kind of an odd angle, and it stays right with him. And because the coaches are not wearing any helmets, the face detection works really well, and I tend to keep my focus point. I use that expand flexible spot, which is a movable spot based on the thumb joystick. I like to keep it in those quadrants like the upper third, because I kind of know where I want the framing to be using kind of the classic grid structure. So this was over a little bit off center, so it found the head coach here and went on him with face detection. Again, it's these little off moments that are much easier to communicate because they're cleaner. That is to say, your eye goes right to them. This sequence turned out to be really nice too. And there's just a lot of options from the point of just beginning the tackle. That's pretty strong. And then he's airborne and stays airborne for 3 frames. Jubilation is great across the field. And then being able to comfortably and confidently track this shot with autofocus and get quite a few chances at something that would, in the past, you might have one. And then all the things would have to align, the planets. Okay, these are inside the locker room with non-400. There, now we're back with the 4, photographing the crowd, sidelines. So we had quite a few chances with this, from the handoff around the left end and then moving upfield till inevitably being tackled and almost losing the ball. And it stays there, sharp. Felt so bad for Coach Poston. It was a tough day, long night. So here was a pass off to the flank and heading upfield. And this sequence turned out to be pretty good too. Had a lot of options as this player moved across the field. There's chaos and randomness in football. I mean, yeah, they're going in one direction, but the angles can be really funky. So using contrast-based autofocus is just not possible. You've got to have something that's so responsive, and it's got to be phase detect, predictive autofocus. Even though this light is a little bit low contrast, the camera and lens combination found it, and everything stayed sharp through that tight sequence, as it did here. And then we see another face mask happening. I came in a little tighter on this one. There's the infraction right there. So not only did I have just one photo showing it, but I had multiple. Almost a block. The catch, turn, upfield, touchdown. Again, they ran this draw play that got them quite a bit of yardage. Sideline action. Now this is a pretty good sequence too. It shows it developing the Heisman pose. And there's just a lot of, I mean, you've got so many photos in there that you could use. I love that one. I love any time I can get the players airborne, feet off the ground. At 20 frames a second, you get that in the end. So thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, be sure and put them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them for you. And if you would, give me a thumbs up on this video and subscribe to the channel. And I will talk to you later. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.